Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Well, we made it to Friday, which means the weekend is coming. And Jim, after the last two weekends, who knows what we're going to be talking about on Monday, but hopefully it's something what was once considered normal. Because after an assassination attempt and a president deciding not to run for re-election, this weekend's got a high bar to clear, and I really hope it's not cleared. That's all I'm after this weekend. But let's talk about our good, bad, and crazy martinis today. Double-fisted on the good martini here in that, first of all, Americans are not fooled by the Joe Biden situation and his current condition. Not only have Americans for a long time thought he's not mentally up to the job, 54% now believe that his true condition was covered up, and only 30% believe it was not. And of those 54% who believe it was covered up, and obviously it was, 92% think Kamala Harris was part of that cover-up. The news media, 88%. The Biden family, 96%. Congressional Democrats, 92%. White House staff, 95%. Matthew Continetti over at the Free Beacon talking about the whiplash coverage of Biden, not only in the last few weeks, but over the course of his one term in office. His tweet, summing up the article, says, Democrats have gone from saying Joe Biden is the next FDR to Biden is fine. How dare you question his age? To Biden is incapable of serving a second term. To Biden is a stubborn old man who will sink the party. To Biden is a demigod whose selflessness will be recalled for centuries. So, Jim, the American people thankfully aren't buying any of this. Anybody who has a memory lasting more than, a week knows how the Democrats and the media were talking about Joe Biden when they didn't do what he wanted. It was all about whether or not he could win anymore. And so people aren't falling for that. They knew that he was incapable of doing the job as well as other people. And so the numbers are good, and the explanation by Continetti is good.
Greg, if Democrats want to make that sequence of arguments, they have to learn to pause. They have to learn when to take a breath. Because if you say Biden is just like Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his health is fine, well, FDR died in office. I don't think that's the comparison you automatically want to go with. But yeah, so I saw that survey response and I thought, it reminds me of the argument over the lab leak of the origin of COVID. Yeah, we had a very intense argument for a good portion of 2020, into 2021, into 2022. And if you look at the polling numbers, the American public, by a fairly wide margin, became convinced a lab leak was the more likely scenario, or that explained more than the natural origin, in which entirely separate from the two labs doing gain-of-function research on horseshoe bats. Just magically, this other virus came along and just happened to crop up down the street from the labs. And I felt kind of proud. I felt pleased. Okay, we won that argument. And then you notice nothing happened. I think it's safe to say, those of us who have said, Biden does not look like a guy who's doing just fine. He doesn't look like he just had a cold. It wasn't just a bad night. He looks like a guy who's really in rough shape and in rapid decline. We've won that argument. People do not believe the argument of, he just had a cold, or, he was jet lagged from that trip he took 11 days earlier, or all these other excuses that were rolled out in part of it. But I want to remember, because so he's over COVID, and throughout these 5-6 days in which we didn't see the president, we kept getting these daily updates from Dr. O'Connor, the president's physician, who's saying he's recovering really well, he's breathing normally, blood oxygen level, he's on medication the way he should be, he's performing his duties fine, and we just couldn't see him at all. We then saw him address the country. I don't think he looked or sounded great. I was able to performing it, but it was an 11-minute address, reading from the teleprompter, stumbled over his words a little bit. Voice was soft, voice was kind of raspy. We didn't see anything like a drooping on the side of a face indicating he had a stroke, or as some of those rumors suggest. But remember, like he said, I'm going to be around. And I want to point out, so he goes to recover from COVID, comes back, gives the address at around 8 o'clock Eastern time for about 11 minutes. Then he has nothing on his schedule the next day other than meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. I'm glad he did it at 1 o'clock. They did a meeting with the families of the Americans held hostage at 2:30. That's it. 2 events. Oh, he gets the president's daily brief. That happens all the time. That is not really a public event by any stretch of the imagination. Today, Friday the 26th, the president got his daily brief at 11. He gets a briefing on artificial intelligence from his White House staff. And let me tell you, I strongly suspect that Biden's going to be asking really detailed questions about quantum computing. The Cray supercomputers, what Apple and what IBM's been able to done, are the Chinese, everything you can find out in Dueling Six Demons, which I haven't plugged on this program in a little while. But well, I'm sure Biden's going to be on top of all that. The other night, he just looked like he was so on top of his game. And then the president has, at 5:30, he goes to Camp David, and he'll be spending the weekend at Camp David. Not exactly that huge schedule that we were expecting after this brief recovery from COVID. Like, we'll see what happens, but it looks like he's, like if you thought he wasn't, he was doing 2 events a day because it was campaign season, and now that he's not running for a re-election, we're probably going to get 1 public event a day back to normal. And don't tell me this guy's doing fine. He's 81 and a half, and it looks and sound every bit of it. And again, I still think we'll get some sort of memoir that will say, yeah, the president was in really rough shape, but we hid it from the public. And the public's going to say, no, you didn't.
Now, I think yesterday was a perfect example of how the next 4 months are going to play out, where Kamala does the public speaking, gives the statement, does the photo op. I mean, Biden did a photo op too. We're going to see a lot more of her because the campaign and the administration wants to give the impression that she's already kind of on the job. And then in terms of the 54-30, I think you're going to find that in terms of a cover-up kind of solidifying a little bit around party lines, with independents tilting towards cover-up. But it was interesting that after 3 weeks of Biden's clearly not up to this job, after his speech on Wednesday night, CNN had a panel, and it wasn't their A-lister panel with Axelrod and Van Jones and Scott Jennings and all that. It was a show hosted by Abby Phillips. One of the conservative pundits said the same thing a lot of Republicans have been saying. It's obvious from this statement, it's obvious from what we've seen over the last few weeks, he's not up for the job. Why is he even staying on as president? And Ana Navarro and a bunch of other people like, what evidence do you have that he can't do the job? So we've done this whole 180 now that he's out of the way, and we're supposed to pretend now that he's perfectly capable of doing the job for the next 6 months.
First, before we go any further, Greg, that is a great program, but with Abby Phillip over folks at CNN, all great team. And I say that not just because they invited me on and I couldn't make it, but I just want them to know that we're not ripping into them on this program. You have to. It's interesting that the way Biden's capacity flips on and off like a night switch. That either he's he's totally got it, or no, he's got to go, and he's not going to run. Okay, we have Kamala in. All right, no, he's totally back to being fine again. And maybe the statement is that for a good portion of the last 4 years, we've had a 10-4 president, and it's a bet that we can function with a 10-4 president for the next 6 months. I don't like that. I don't think it's a good idea. I think Hillary Clinton did the ad about the 3 a.m. phone call. But, you notice that nobody else in the Democratic Party is clamoring, even though it probably would be to Harris's advantage to be the acting president for the next 6 months.
All they care about is winning the election.
Yep.
All they care about. All they care about. And all you care about, if you're going to be doing some drinking, is feeling good the next morning, or at least feeling better than you would otherwise. And if you want to do that, it's called Z-Biotics. As I've mentioned many times, I've got a colleague who knew exactly how much he could drink and feel great the next day. Then all of a sudden, as he got older, a little bit rougher the next morning. So he tried Z-Biotics. He and his wife both tried it, and they were right back to where they were before, feeling absolutely fine the next morning.
Listeners, it's finally Friday. You're probably going out tonight. You're probably going to have a good time. And if you don't take Z-Biotics, you're probably going to regret it. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as I'm sure you always do, and you will feel your best the next morning.
Go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, on to our second martini now, and I guess we're going to classify this one as the bad. Before Joe Biden got out, he and President Trump were scheduled to have a second presidential debate on September 10th, hosted by ABC News, which means George Stephanopoulos is probably among the moderators slated to do that debate, which ought to make everyone on the right real encouraged by that lineup. But Trump saying yesterday, essentially, look, I think he said at other times he's planning to debate Kamala Harris, but he says, I'm not committing to that debate until I know who the Democratic nominee is. They've already swapped out the candidate once. Who knows if she'll still be the candidate by the time their convention wraps up. So he's not locking into that one yet. And so as a result, Kamala Harris kind of trolling him at the airport the other day saying, what's going on? You already agreed to this debate. What's the problem now, Mr. Trump? And then you got other people out there like Pete Buttigieg saying, oh, this is a sign of weakness. Never seen a presidential candidate do this before. And so
listeners noticing Greg testing out the Buttigieg impression.
He's so vanilla. There's not really much to work on.
Yeah, Greg, one of my colleagues described Buttigieg as the human PowerPoint presentation. So if you could just kind of like have that in your headspace as you're doing that. Did you want to wrap up, or sorry to interrupt there?
No, I was just saying that the question is, should Trump just stick with what he's done? Should he ask for a second one since it'll be a different candidate? Some people on the right think Trump has nothing to gain from a debate. So I don't know. Should he have just kept the powder dry until the convention wrapped up and then talked about it? What's your feeling on that?
All right. Well, first, let me get this out of the way. Alfred E. Newman is questioning the toughness of a guy who just got shot in the head. But the second thing, I nominated this as the bad Martini because I think Trump botched this. I think this was an attempt to troll the Democrats for this last second change. And I think the right attitude is anytime, let's go. You want to do it tonight? Let's do it tonight. This is where I'm going to be. Let's do this debate. I can wipe the floor with anybody you send up there. I got the easiest case to make. You have run this country into the ground. You are Biden's right-hand woman at every step of the way. You're responsible for the border policies. You're responsible for the policies that cause this inflation. You're responsible for policies that have helped spread chaos overseas. I am ready. Let's go. That should be your attitude. You should never be in the position of turning down a debate. One of the things I just discussed at this Washington Post event I did this morning was will Harris be a better candidate than Biden? Yes. She's alive, right? She's not, set for retirement. She'll be better on a debate stage. She'll probably be poised. We've seen her do that kind of her prosecutorial routine. And Trump, ideally would prepare, would be prepped, have good counter arguments ready to go. I think we remember the Trump-Biden debate. Trump was really helped by the fact that Biden looked terrible and decrepit and mouth hanging open, blank stare on his face. That all made Trump looked like Cicero. It's not going to be as easy next time, but I think he can more than hold his own and probably be fine. He's got a fairly easy case to make. Dear America, have you had enough? Then you got to vote for change. You got to vote for me. Don't buy this idea that she's changed because she's been, this is just a different look to the same old policies. I don't, So first of all, there will be a debate, and if I'm Trump, I want a lot of these debates because Trump has his flaws. Trump, it's a possibility Trump can have a bad night. I think he'll probably be condescending to Kamala Harris. I think he'll probably say something that will play badly. But if I'm him, I want 6 debates. I want 10 debates. I want as many debates as possible. Because each one, if any of them go wrong, it makes each one less consequential. And 2, the more you put Harris in front of the American people, the more I think what they don't like about her will come to the surface. And eventually, whatever prepared, poised, image she's trying to project, the more it will crack, and they'll see something they don't like.
No, I think that's largely correct. And the thing Trump, the thing about Trump in the debates is, and the so-called fact checkers always try to catch him on, and he'll be like, we have the greatest economy of all time. This is the worst economy of all time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the point is just it was a lot better then. But of course, the media is going to be like, now that they've shoved Biden the long knives, metaphorically,
as Charlie said, my colleague Charlie Cook said, boy, wasn't it nice to have a press corps for a month? Wasn't it nice to have people who actually, ask questions of Democrats and we're kind of pushing them on it, Yeah, good times. Good times. Never coming back.
Not until they need to shiv another Democrat out of the way. Anyway, let's talk about Lumen, because if your appetite for media spin is waning, your appetite for good nutrition ought to be on the rise. And Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. It could not be easier. It's as easy as breathing. You wake up in the morning, you breathe into your Lumen. It tells you if you're burning fat or carbs and what your nutrition should look like for the rest of the day. And the more you use it, the more detailed guidance it will give you about workouts, sleep, stress management, and much more.
Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, Optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, you name it. And Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health.
So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/3ml to get 15% off your Lumen. That is lumen.me/3ml for 15% off your purchase. Again, that's lumen.me/3ml. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. All right, Jim. Well, it took him long enough. When every other Democrat was pretty much on board with Kamala Harris within the first 24 hours, the notable exception was the Obamas. But now that I'm guessing they've decided and concluded that she's got this thing locked up, it's time for a full-throated, enthusiastic endorsement. So they rolled out this pretty cringy video in the middle of the night, mind you, with Kamala supposedly talking with the Obamas on the phone. And here's how it goes.
Kamala!
Hello. Hi.
Hey there!
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
All right. So Obama couldn't figure out a way around the avalanche that happened in the first day or two. And so he's on board now. How active he'll be in the campaign, I don't know. I'm sure he'll have a prominent speaking role at the convention. And Michelle, I wouldn't be surprised if she had one as well. So the Democrats are all in on Kamala. We're now kind of in the Veep stakes realm. Allegedly, she plans to make a selection here in the next couple of weeks. And you went through some of the names in the Morning Jolt today, Jim. So what do you make of Obama realizing that he had no other options here? And who do you think she's leaning towards?
Yeah, well, first of all, look, Obama did endorse her. The idea that he was going to hold out for a long time didn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I think it was Liam Donovan on Twitter who reminded us that, way back when she was California State Attorney General, Obama had said something like, she's my favorite state attorney general, and I think the best looking one too. And this was a scandal back in 2008. Just that's those sweet, innocent times when, before we had, brainworms and other kinds of political, political stories. You wouldn't think there'd be a big ideological divide between the Obamas and Kamala Harris. There's something weird about the reluctance of this. I mean, quite literally, Obama is phoning it in. Yes. But if you've ever, just observation about Harris and the way she speaks and the way she addresses people, if you ever have a chance to meet the vice president and she talks to you like she's addressing a kindergarten class, don't be offended, because that's how she greets the former president of the United States as well. Hello, it's so good to see you. It's so good to hear you. Like there's this, sing-songiness to her voice that's a little bit out there. And like the phrasing of Obama, we're going to get you through this election. Teresa, we can't wait to help you win. No, we're going to carry you over the finish line. We are going to drag your dead weight. There's just something weird about that. Like if you were the former president and I want to, if this is the successor, you're passing the torch as Biden spoke. Wouldn't you want to be on camera? Wouldn't you want to I just feel like this is something worth flying out wherever the vice president's going to be, attending a rally and holding up the arm and high-fiving. And it just there's a weird lack of enthusiasm to this on the part of the Obamas. And I don't quite get what it is. He checked the box. He endorsed. I assume Obama will be speaking at the convention. I assume you'll hear more of that from him. But there's a weird hesitation or reluctance there just as we have not heard everything about Biden and his health. I have a feeling we will hear a story about some division between Kamala Harris and the Obamas going, and who knows what this is about, but there's just
especially if she loses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll hear a lot sooner then. There's an odd limpness to this endorsement that we would not necessarily have expected. Everybody else in the party is like REM, shiny, happy people dancing in the streets over this. And Obama's like, okay, she'll do.
That's right.
No, you know what it is? You're likable enough, Hillary.
Kamala's probably more likable than Hillary, but that's, again, not a high bar to clear. So when it comes to the Veep stakes, the names that are out there are Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly. Governor Beshear's been mentioned, but I don't know that he's on the short list. Whitmer has been mentioned, but she says she doesn't want it. Buttigieg apparently is being vetted. Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. And
I think he took himself out. I think he said
did
he's
he take
not.
himself out?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
He'll be on a ticket someday.
Yeah, he seems to be rising in the party ranks. And, Trump picked a guy that was just elected 2 years ago into government for his VP. So if they do go with someone who's doesn't have a ton of political experience in elected office, Republicans don't really have an argument to make on that. But you generally do want someone with a little bit of experience in that position if they need to take over. So yesterday you mentioned Shapiro maybe to kick the shins of the pro-Hamas protesters and so forth. But if you're Kamala, do you go with the person who helps you win? Do you go with the person who helps you govern? A lot of different factors here.
Yeah, and I actually have, we can have some breaking news on this podcast, Greg. Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania, I now appears will not be the choice because I like him best. And I can never have what I want in this life, particularly in the realm of politics, because I have said, yeah, this guy's the head and shoulders better than everybody else. That pretty much guarantees that he will not be the choice then. So the Post had asked every columnist, here's 6 names, and mention anybody else you think you should name and rank them. And Wes Moore was on my list. Golden resume, captain in the 82nd Airborne, served in Afghanistan, Oxford, Johns Hopkins, just this guy's done a little bit of everything in his life. And he's now built, as Eugene Robinson pointed out during our panel this morning, he's building a bridge right now. He's a little bit busy. He's got something to worry about at Maryland. So he's off the list. My other one I did, and nobody's mentioning, and look, I'm not saying he's a great pick. Tony Evers, the governor of Wisconsin. All of our Wisconsin listeners are saying, "What, Garrity? Do you have a concussion?" And look, I'm not saying he's a great pick, but he could probably deliver Wisconsin, and that's part of the blue wall. But there are other 6 names, and to me, Shapiro. First of all, when he was running for state attorney general in 2020, he won more votes than Biden. I think he's about as close as you can get to a guy who. But I did my criteria entirely on who helps you get to 270. Who's going to be the best president? Look, they're all Democrats. None of these are going to be great folks. I think Shapiro's steadfast support of Israel is probably the best quality of any of these guys we're going to find. But they're all liberals. There's not a huge ideological range there. But so as Shapiro, I think he delivers Pennsylvania, and then I think if you win 2 of the 3 blue wall states, Harris is knocking on the door at 270. You just need a little bit of luck somewhere else. Second one, and Greg, if you want to jump through the screen and strangle me, I'll understand. I put Whitmer second. Now, I think there are a lot of people who would cringe or say, 2 women on a ticket would be challenging. But when I checked, Whitmer's approval rating is like 52%. I don't know if she's a lock to guarantee Michigan. But if you could get Michigan, that's an enormous, help towards that. And I think that, the question is you're weighing those 2 risks. Number 3 on my list was a surprise. Roy Cooper, governor of North Carolina. I looked it up. He's won 7 statewide races in North Carolina since the year 2000. You figure this guy knows how to win this race. And I think all year long I've been saying I don't think North Carolina is a real swing state. You put Cooper on the ticket, then yes, it is. And I think this guy knows how to win North Carolina. And that's 15 electoral votes that everybody's had in the Trump pile since the beginning. So that frees up a lot of, flexibility on these other swing states. Beshear is interesting, but he's not going to win. You're not going to win Kentucky. So I don't know how much he helps you by proxy in Georgia and North Carolina and places like that. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His dad was governor. I don't know what Beshear gets you that Cooper doesn't. And everybody else at the Post seemed to love Mark Kelly. I don't know if it's the astronaut jacket or... Do you know what it is, Greg? They think he's out of this world. He's fine. I don't think he does any damage. Obviously, helps you in Arizona. Husband to Gabby Gifford, 39 combat missions in the Persian Gulf War, commander of Space Shuttle Endeavour on its final flight. It's a great biography and life story. As we were saying yesterday, you just haven't heard much about him in the Senate, and I think he's Maybe people like him because they see him as a blank slate or something. So those are the top picks, and because I listed the strengths of all of them, clearly she's going to go with Buttigieg.
Yeah, in terms of what you just said, I think she probably wins Michigan with or without Whitmer. The idea that one's a toss-up, as much as for Republicans' sake,
it's broken Republicans' hearts a lot of times over the years. Yeah,
a lot. And then I think the flip side is true in North Carolina. I think Trump wins North Carolina whether Roy Cooper's on the ticket or not, but I could be wrong. But he runs for governor in North Carolina in presidential years, and the last 2 years he's been on the ballot, and obviously not
he's term limited,
ticket.
So he's got nothing else to do. He's free. He's free for the next few years.
Exactly right. Now, of the two I think that are at least seem to be most in the mix, Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly, remember this tweet from Josh Shapiro. This was October 31st, 2020. So he's AG of Pennsylvania at this point. And his tweet is, if all the votes are added up in Pennsylvania, Trump is going to lose. That's why he's working overtime to subtract as many votes as possible from the process. I remember when that tweet hit just before Election Day, and there was a lot of anger about Shapiro basically making the argument the only way you win this state is if you cheat. So talk about
not something you want to hear from the state's chief law enforcement officer, the guy who's in charge of enforcing election laws. Yeah,
exactly. And then Mark Kelly profiles encourage Mark Kelly just flipped on the PRO Act because he wants to suck up to the unions here. The PRO Act is basically geared at making anybody who hires freelancers pay them full benefits, which means the freelancers aren't going to get hired as much. And so all of a sudden, just when his political fortunes might benefit from a change of position, Mark Kelly can kind of see how he acts when the chips are down.
Yeah, but the space shuttle, Greg, space shuttle. He's brave. He's brave in those circumstances. He's tough on the other kind of illegal aliens.
Seriously, you do get Gabby Giffords on stage in that situation, and she's a hero for the party. I think a lot of people admire her, and for the past however many years it's been, 13, 14 years now since her tragic shooting. And so I think that's a big part of his appeal for the left as well. And so we will see. I don't think we're going to get that news over the weekend. And honestly, I hope we get no big news over the weekend so we can actually have some time with our families. What a concept. Jim, have a good weekend.
All for it. World, standing athwart history, yelling, stop, we need the weekends off. See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Do subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific weekend and join us again on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.